Brought to you by Penguin.
The Sword Saint, Empire of Salt, Book 3, by Conn Iggulden. Read by Daniel Weyman. Prologue. The boy crouched on a ledge, resting his chin on his knees, eyes bright as he watched the old priest pass below. His mother had told him not to visit the little temple on the hill. She'd made him swear he would never set foot in the place. He'd nodded and mumbled his oath, but all the time he'd known he would. Rules were wonderful things, Jean had discovered. Boys, girls, adult men and women, even priests, seemed bound by them. They called them laws or traditions, and then they raised them up to Holy Writ, for fear of being caught, Jean supposed. So if he wasn't caught, he could do anything. He loved rules, as many as possible. He could argue in his persuasive way that people needed them to fend off the ache of having to make their own decisions, for example. Or because when they really needed to rebel, to roar and shake their fists at the stars, they could break some petty little law about not defacing coins rather than running amok with an axe. Jean smiled as the priest muttered something to himself, utterly unaware of the 14-year-old perched high above him. He'd watched the cleric go through his late service over a dozen evenings, peering in from the door. Jean knew his mother would hardly have been able to believe his patience, but he didn't want to rush in. Not for this. She still thought of him as a child, but he had a man's growth on him. She still thought of him as a child, but he had a man's growth on him, and he could see the way other men looked away as he passed, for all his youth. There was something in his eyes, in the challenge they saw there, that made them drop their gaze. Each time it happened was a little triumph. He hoped it hurt when older men felt their nerve fail. It would never happen to him. He would die first. His mind filled again with dreams of gold. The old priest may have served some dark god to frighten Jean's mother, and all mothers like her, but the smell of blood was rich and not unpleasant, not noticeably worse than a butcher's shop. And what did it matter, really, if some sheep was thrown alive onto a fire rather than being slaughtered and cut into chops first? No, Jean Breland was not afraid of a skinny priest, half dead and milky-eyed. If there was a treasure in that little temple, he would have it. Perhaps he would buy his mother a house. She looked at him then without the pity and fear he always saw in her. Her disappointment was like acid in that way. It burned him and made him jut his jaw. It made him determined to prove her wrong. He was not his father. Ahead of him, the priest fiddled with the mechanism of the door to the inner sanctuary, or whatever it was that lay behind it. Jean had only caught a glimpse of the room on one previous occasion, when Father Cormac had been caught in a rainstorm, stumbling in with an armful of firewood, leaving the door open until he...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?